Well, let's stay with this story and talk about those attacks in the Gulf between the US and Iran. Philip Turle is with me. And look, we've heard President Trump saying that Iran's military has been effectively destroyed, but nonetheless, we see that Iran is still able to carry out attacks on American allies. How do you read and understand what the Iranians are doing? Is the regime flexing its muscle? Is this a sign that the regime is desperate, that it's in trouble? What's your understanding?
I think probably we see a mixture of both of those.
Yeah.
I think that the regime is keen to flex its muscles because it knows that the Americans are in a weak spot right now as far as the war in Iran is concerned, and they want to put the pressure on American bases, on American soldiers based outside of Iran and on Iran's immediate neighbors to put pressure on the US to end the war. They know that they can play this out. They are facing a long-term project here to try to destabilize the United States. And the longer this goes on, the more chance the Iranian regime has of surviving. The problem is that Iran's economy is suffering very badly. I'll give you a couple of figures. $270 billion worth of damage to the economy since the start of the war back in February. And the International Monetary Fund says it expects the economy to contract by 6.1% this year. The United Nations warning that over 4 million Iranians are now living below or could live below the poverty line as a result of the war. So there is pressure on the Iranians also economically to be able to get over this war and to get the country back on its feet. So I think it's flexing its muscles by showing, yes, well, we're still a force to be reckoned with. We're contradicting what Donald Trump says, which is basically it's all been destroyed. There's no army, there's no navy. Well, yes, there is, because we're able to fight back and we're able to shoot missiles into other Gulf states to prove that we're still a force to be reckoned with.
Look, Donald Trump also saying earlier this week that the ceasefire with Iran is over, it's done. But look, what alternative really is there to the peace talks that they need to hash out?
Well, if you read between the lines of what Donald Trump's been saying, he says the ceasefire is over, but there's no mention of the peace talks being over. So these are still carrying on behind the scenes. It's difficult. The prospect of this 60-day memorandum of understanding coming to fruition, there being a peace deal between Iran and the United States, is looking incredibly fragile right now. But there is still a push, I think, by both sides to try to find some way forward, basically because there is no other alternative. They don't want either the United States or the Iranians to go back to full-scale war. That would be a disaster for Iran. It would also be a disaster for Donald Trump. Remember, the war is vastly unpopular in the United States. Only 36% of Americans think it's a good idea. 57% oppose it. Donald Trump has midterm elections coming up. He's also in the same predicament as far as his popularity rating is concerned because of the economy in the United States as well. So all of these problems are coming together to make it very complicated for Donald Trump to find a way out. And he's now saying, well, basically, Iran doesn't have a nuclear problem anymore. It's been destroyed. So therefore, the war has been a success. I think he's trying to pull this towards himself to make it look like a success story for the United States. But behind the scenes, it is a real mess, and no one really knows where this is going right now.